So yesterday, Venerable Semke gave us some very thought-provoking questions about the utility of the death penalty. And often the question comes up when we do work with inmates, what about the victims? Or do you do any work with them? And my answer is yes. And I have never talked to, written to, heard an inmate story yet that that inmate didn't start out as a victim. And so many of their stories are so painful, and so they have experienced such cruelty in their lives. And so I wanted to kind of give a flavor today. This is a very mild story that an inmate wrote about his life, actually. But just to give you a flavor of what young children can go through. So he starts out, as a background, you can say my life experiences are typical of most people from a dysfunctional family. My mother was only about 15 years old when I was born. My father committed suicide when I was around 5, and he was 20. I was in a foster home for many, many years. I don't remember much of those days. For as long as I can remember, drugs and alcohol were part of my life. In fact, my mother would allow me to smoke cigarettes, smoke pot, and drink. My home was a party house. I liked that party lifestyle. Well, what kid wouldn't? My friends would come over at night and we would party. I mean party. Drink, dance, and everything all night. My mother would send mixed messages because at times that sort of thing was just fine, but at other times it was not okay. I don't blame her for anything that I did. I love her deeply. She did her best with what she felt at the time. I only have kind memories of her. My stepfather knew my mother and biological father. They were friends. My stepfather and I didn't get along that well. He also would send messages. At times he wanted to be very strict with my brothers and me. Other times he would let us party. One day my friend and I decided to go out and rob someone to obtain money for drugs. I ended up shooting someone. I was arrested 3 days later for murder at the age of 17. Like all kids, I thought I was indestructible. My mind was so messed up that I believed I was more powerful than Satan or God. To this day, I don't know why I shot someone that day. No money was taken. I was scared. It was as if someone else was in control of my body. It was like a dream. I am truly remorseful for what I did, and I have come to terms with my sentences. One is a 29 years to life sentence. The other one is a life sentence, and the other one is plus 4 years. And then he writes, for a long time, all I could do is be lost in pain and delusions. But as if by chance, I encountered the Dharma. I have tasted reality and the path of liberation. Awakening is set before me. I have found such a great treasure. I am truly fortunate. And then his last letter, he says, my Vajrasattva practice is getting back on track. During my transfer to here, it was hard to focus in a new environment. We are truly fortunate to be able to practice. I have realized that my self-centeredness can be alive and well. I have been trying to have some self-forgiveness for all the people I have hurt in my life. I have felt guilt and hating myself for a very long time. I'm beginning to realize that that does not make up for my wrongs. The compassion I want to give others, I now try to give to myself with self-acceptance. I acknowledge my mistakes, see the harm it caused, and take responsibility. This way, I don't continue my self-centeredness. So I think we can see from this fellow how far he has come from the time he was 17 and, like he said, so confused, pretty much out of control. And so he started out as a victim from circumstance and had no parenting and then did things that brought some horrendous results. So when we think of these people, to remind ourselves that, little kids really don't start out with these thoughts to hurt others and to be so violent. But if they are involved in a system that is non-caring and chaotic, very dysfunctional with a lot of drugs and alcohol, then the results we can see very clear. So I think it's really helpful to remember that people that are locked up started out in very difficult circumstances. And again, I have never, ever heard of a story of an inmate from, a lovely, easygoing, wonderful childhood. I just never have. I don't think that's what happens. So I think to be mindful of that. That doesn't take away from the pain and the harm they've created. And of course, people that are victims of crime have terrible suffering also. But to make those suffer some more that have caused suffering is not going to bring any peace for anybody. It's not going to bring any peace for anybody. So let's again try to really cultivate our compassionate heart and bring our equanimity to all beings.